Mental health has a journey of its own. While it has manifested itself since the beginning of humankind, us humans have only matured recently to recognize it separately from moods and spirits to hold it to the same standards as physical health. While the attitudes of communities are catching up to it at their own pace, the issue of mental health impacts everyone beyond color and class. And it is time we reconcile this gap and start giving universal attention to mental health for the wellness of humankind. Truly Alive wishes everyone a happy Black History Month. I am Nidhi Singh, and today I am accompanied by my beautiful co-host Khanarama Saleh. As we celebrate Black History Month, Truly Alive Youth and Family Foundation Inc. brings to you a 2-episode podcast that discusses mental health issues faced in the Black communities in Saskatchewan. We are joined today by 2 mental health practitioners, Darcia, an experienced psychologist, and Adijat Adekunle, a social worker from Saskatchewan. They will help us find answers to many closeted questions related to mental health that have long been associated with stigma.
Thanks, Nidhi. Indeed, guys, you asked, and today we'll get the answers. Just a little background on both experts. Adijat Adekunle is a registered social worker and earned her Master's of Social Work from Dalhousie University, following a Bachelor's of Arts in Psychology from the University of Saskatchewan, and a Bachelor of Social Work from the University of Regina. Adi has spent her career supporting those with experiences of addiction, trauma, intercultural challenges, gender and sexuality diversity, and other mental health issues, as well as providing acute clinical services to children, youths, and adults. Sitting down with Adi means a safe place of non-judgment acceptance and patience, where she will work as a partner to help identify your strength, reach your goals, and become the author of your own story. Adi is passionate about justice and equality and never stops thinking about the deeper root causes of mental emotional health and professional and personal successes and failures that can be mostly beyond our control. She is trained in cognitive behavioral therapy, known as CBT, motivational interviewing, trauma-informed care, play therapy, system theory, and her person-centered approach is deeply informed by lived experience. Thank you so much.
Very welcome, Adijat.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for the introduction.
I will take this opportunity to introduce our second guest of the day. Darcia is a registered psychologist in private practice. She has 31 years of psychology practice, with 29 years of those years with the Saskatchewan Health Authority, mental health and addiction services, youth community counseling as a psychologist, senior psychologist, and a supervisor. Her practice has focused on individual and family counseling, psychoeducational assessments in the area of learning disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and psychological assessment in the areas of anxiety and depression. She has extensive experience in training in individual and family counseling. Throughout her career, she has provided consultation, presentations, and professional development workshops to the community on various mental health topics such as anxiety, depression, attention, positive psychology, adolescent development, learning disabilities, cognitive behavioral therapy, trauma, teaching strategies, and parenting strategies. Throughout her career, she has provided supervision for practicum students from the University of Saskatchewan, department called Educational Psychology, and supervision for psychologists obtaining their registrations with the Saskatchewan College of Psychologists as well as certified counselors. So here we are in for a great learning experience. We just want to let our listeners know the questions are based on our research and the primary data collected by Truly Alive Youth and Family Foundation Inc. over the past few weeks. So my first question to both of you, why is it important to talk and have conversations around mental health? So who would like to answer first, Adijat or Darcia?
I'd love to start. Well, mental health is an integral part of us as human beings.
We focus a lot on our physical health, but mental health is part of who we are. And the more that we can talk about it openly as a community, then we can start looking at the stigma that surrounds mental health. So it's so important from the time that working with children to adolescents to adults and to the geriatric population. It's so important because mental health, it spreads through the whole continuum of development.
Absolutely, I agree with you, Darcia. In terms of breaking that stigma of mental health, I think historically it's always been a taboo to talk about your feelings and to express vulnerability, and we forget that everybody gets sad and everybody can be happy and experience a wide variety of emotions, and unpacking what those emotions are, where they stem from, and how to move past them, how to deal with them, or how to live with them. Those things are important. And you talked about focusing on physical health, and we do that all the time. You go to your doctor for your every year checkup, or you go to your dentist every 6 months to get your checkup, but then you forget about mental health and how, not realizing that if your mental health isn't healthy, isn't where it's supposed to be, then everything is not in balance. Everything is out of, is not synchronized, right? And so that's important. It's important to talk about it and to destigmatize it too. Yeah.
I agree, Addie. I think I just want to add a comment about it's so important to know the mind and body connection. They work together in a tandem.
Yes.
So if we have, a broken bone, it's the same thing with our mental health.
Exactly.
Right? If our mental health is something that we can focus on, then the rest of our body heals along with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So guys, Darcia and Adijat just focused on holistic well-being, and here comes our next question. As per the survey that we conducted, depression, phobias, trauma from life experiences, ongoing and past, and suicide seems to be the top most prevalent mental health issues in the Black communities. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, in reviewing the responses, it's, it is the reality of a lot of youth and adults and kids. That's their reality, right? To experience this different mental health conditions. And, it stems from different places. It's the reasons for experiencing some of this mental health conditions are, and that's why it's important to address those, right? Because we need to figure out where those things come from and how to address them. Depression, anxiety, OCD, all of this stuff, there's so many reasons why folks start developing this, right? When we've been talking about racialized trauma and how that impacts our health, our mental health negatively, and it almost snowballs into different conditions, right? Anxieties around how people perceive me, or how does my hair look? Do they like my skin color? What about my accent? Are they going to understand what I'm saying when I'm in class and I'm presenting? All these inner thoughts, they, if left unaddressed, they become this huge thing that then we don't have a handle on and we can't control, and we don't even understand why we're feeling those things, right? And also thinking about different lived experiences, right? Whether it's through immigration or cultural differences and all of that stuff. It's like they all work together to add to some of the pressures that youth feel in the community, right? And there are some unintended consequences too of parental pressure, for example, and what that looks like, right? And those a lot of our inner voices stem from outside voices, right? They're outer voices from the people around us, whether it's our parents, whether it's our classmates, or a therapist that said something wrong that they don't understand your experiences, and then you internalize those things. And there are so many intersecting factors that adds to the problems and the issues that a lot of Black youths face in our community. And that's why addressing that and destigmatizing it and coming forward with it is really important so that we can actually get to work and address those issues, right?
Yeah, I think it's also too to look at mental health is on a continuum. So there are times when we feel psychological distress. We're sad, we're feeling anxious, and anxiety and sadness, those are good emotions. There's nothing wrong with those emotions. But sometimes the continuum, and depending upon what's happening in your life, like trauma or pressures of society, then over time, some of those beginning stages of anxiety sometimes starts to, fall along the continuum and get a little bit more, moderate, a little bit more, you're feeling a little bit more out of control. So it's important to know that our mental health is on a continuum, but there's influences that can sometimes affect our mental health, right? And just be aware of where your baseline is, right? And then you start feeling that, oh, this is not feeling right for me. Then that's good to, socially connect with other people and have that dialogue to talk about, are you feeling the same way, right? So that we can get, that dialogue going is so important.
Exactly. Listening to your body. Your doctors will tell you if you feel an unusual pain. You talked about your baseline. If there's a pain in your body or in your teeth or something that's not that's you're not used to, that's new, right? You want to check it out. You want to go and talk to somebody who's knowledgeable about this stuff to address them. It's the same thing, just like you're saying, right? Understanding that, oh, I'm feeling a different way that I'm used to. What is that? And who can I talk to about this, and where do I go from here, right? And that's how you begin to address some of those issues.
Yeah, and thank you for touching so much on that, because I've lived in so many African countries, and the common line theme is that people notice mental illness when it's on the extreme. When somebody has run mad, they're acting unconventional, right? And the subtle forms, yet profound forms of mental illness, such as depression and anxiety, are ignored or they're untalked about just so you can seem strong. So what's your view on that?
Yes, it's quite sad, because when we don't have an understanding of an issue, we tend to think of it as bad. In the African community, I think coming from back home, where I don't think I ever heard anybody talk about mental health and what that looks like. If you're sad, well, go and sleep and go eat and you feel better, right? Or go play, and we don't really. I don't know if it's because of the lack of understanding or what the issue truly is. And you're right. We see it when it's profound, when it's severe, and when it's gone out of hand, and then that's our image of what mental health is. That's madness, and then we don't want that. And so when we start feeling depressed, or we start having anxieties, or we're sad, or we have obsessive compulsive disorder, whatever the case may be, we want to hide it, right? Because then we don't want to be stigmatized, we don't want to be thought of as mad, we don't want that negative view of us. And it is problematic in a sense, because we need to start talking more about it and addressing it as something that's normal, because everybody feels this way, and people have various mental health conditions that they're dealing with, right? Even your therapist is probably seeing a therapist at some point. I know I have been to therapy, right? And it's I think it comes from education, right? Educating the community, talking to the youths, and having this open dialogue, right, of what it is, and that everybody feels it, and that it is okay, right?
Yeah, and I think sometimes in some cultures too, is that there's a shame and guilt to feel that emotion, or sometimes children don't want to share with their parents how they're feeling because they don't want to hurt their parents' feelings. Parents always want to love and nurture their children, but sometimes some children grow up in trying to protect their parents, right? Yeah. So they don't want to say to mom and dad that they're feeling sad or they're feeling anxious. Right? So I think it's sort of having that like a check-in. How are you feeling today? You know, your emotions and thoughts. But I think there is a lot of shame and guilt to talk about something, and I totally agree. It is that we don't really understand it, right? I think in some families there might be some shame, right? And so you don't want to talk about it. And as women, right? We're a room full of women here. Yeah. We have multiple roles, and we have to be strong. Right, and then our mothers are strong, and women who have come from different cultures, different backgrounds, they come here and they're the strongest women I've ever met, right? And so sometimes, you know, you want to be that pillar of strength, and that's hard. Yeah, that's a lot of pressure on you.
It is a lot of pressure to you know, carry that and to be strong all the time, right? And it's not sustainable, right? In the long run, right? Everybody needs a break, and everybody needs to unload, and to have other people share the, you know, the roles, the burden, whatever it looks like, right? And and open dialogue.
Still touching on like the Black community and like the African background, from what I've experienced is that also, for those who do not ignore mental health, they're still in denial and they call it a spiritual thing. So you find them, they're like, okay, you are feeling depressed, or you're hearing voices, oh, your village people are after you, type of deal. Right. So like, how would you address such an issue to a person who's facing such kind of form of support from their community that, oh, it's a spiritual thing, go and see either a herbalist or a pastor about it?
Sure. Yeah. So religion in the Black community, in the African community, in different cultures, really is very significant, and it is important. It is part of the identity, and so acknowledging that is important. And sometimes religion is where a lot of folks turn to for like mental and emotional relief, and you know, and there's also that sense of community as well when you go to the church or you go to the mosque to you know, find peace, and that's great, because you know, it's, if you're feeling isolated, if you're feeling marginalized, if you're feeling, you know, oppressed, or whatever it is, sometimes all you want to do is go to a place where it's safe, where you're familiar with, and where you know you'll be accepted, and that is fantastic. I think though that we need to also be careful about how we attribute where our mental issues come from, right? You know, you talked about somebody punishing you because you've done something bad. That's why you're experiencing, you know, certain things. I think some folks in the Black community, in the African community, would think that, you know, if you pray harder, all of your problems will go away, and if you focus on God, all of your problems will go away. Prayer is good, but also additional, you know, medical and psychological help is also great, right? And that would also even help you understand exactly what's going on, right? You can combine, you know, psychological help and therapy with spiritual beliefs, and that is great. In fact, that would probably help very much so. And I think that's also, you know, I may be moving forward here where you know, youths and people in the community struggle, even if they want to you know, go and seek mental health support, is, am I going to find a therapist who's going to understand me? Am I going to find a therapist who will, you know, acknowledge all of my struggles and incorporate all of my beliefs and identities, and you know, see me for exactly who I am? And some of that, you know, those fears, I know firsthand and from other people, to prohibit a lot of people from seeking help. But you know, to go back to what we were talking about, spiritual health is important, and spiritual belief is important, and religious belief is important. You know, if that's what you're into and that's what you believe in, go ahead and do that. But know that there is a other ways of addressing those issues, right? Really, and seeking professional help is important as well. Yeah.
I agree so much, and I think there's something that's come out now in the literature is being a cultural competent therapist. And when you're a cultural competent therapist, then you embrace and combine spiritualities of both and. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And I think in some generations, that spirituality is so important, so strong, and we have to acknowledge that. But it doesn't mean that we are ignoring it and saying it doesn't work when we combine the biological and the psychological, the social model as well. It's that combination that works. And lately there has been some work in the United States with using, for example, a culturally competent cognitive behavioral therapy has now come out where we're combining, right? We're combining spirituality with the traditional cognitive therapy. And then we know that when we speak to the family and we speak to the client in front of you, knowing what their values and beliefs are, then the therapy, it just moves beautifully when we combine that. And I do a lot of family therapy, and I will invite the village into the session, invite the grandparents, and to be respectful of their culture and embrace it and pull it into the therapy. And I think that sometimes is an approach that sometimes people don't realize that we could do. We want to have the village there. We want to embrace that. Because the traditional therapy was, you walked into the office by yourself. And there's somebody who you can't connect with because they don't understand, maybe they don't come from the same viewpoint. But now there's been a strong movement with culturally competent therapists and training out there now.
Absolutely. And I loved what you said, about respecting culture and utilizing that in your therapeutic approach, because that is key. It's important, right? To, we're from different places, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I can't listen and understand your story, right? Because I need to respect where you're from. I need to be culturally humble, and I need to, hear your story and figure out what's important to you, right? And how can we include that? How can I use my professional understanding and that, and also how can I incorporate those things that are important to you to help make this session the best possible session, right?
What I think is that having faith is important, but you can't ignore something, because you have to acknowledge it for you to have faith that something is going to counteract it. So that's where I think faith should come in and not ignore the fact that something is actually there, because then what's the purpose of having faith that's not going to be there if you don't recognize that it's actually there? And for somebody who has moved from Africa and come here, the first thing that came to my attention when I got here was BEL, mental health awareness. So it's like, not only does a phone company acknowledge that your mental health is important and needs to be acknowledged and identified, I come from a place where our phone places, they don't even notice what a mental health is. So like, it's like two different worlds colliding, and be like, okay, we're the phone company, but hey, we notice that you are a human being first before being a service consumer. So what would you tell a person who is new to mental health? What are the telltales of I'm mentally unstable? Because somebody may be, I am so sad, but I don't know why. But does that mean I'm mentally ill? Because you might just be sad. So like, what are the telltales of mentally challenged people?
Sure. Do you want to go for it?
I think as a psychologist, I do assessments, and we try to figure out, is this a psychological distress, depending upon the situation, or are we talking this is a disorder? And that's quite different. And so as a person, how do you figure that out? So some of the signs that you would need to watch for are, for example, if you're feeling suicidal, if you have thoughts of harming yourself, or you have thoughts that you might hurt somebody else. And I think those thoughts can be very scary. And the first step is to let somebody know, because those thoughts are thoughts that are, it's unusual. I think if you look at, we've mentioned before too, if you're feeling that your emotions are, fluctuating and the moods are going back and forth, and that's something that doesn't normally happen for you. We have to really watch our eating and sleeping habits. Of all of a sudden you're having a lot of difficulty sleeping, or you're sleeping too little or too much, or your eating is too little or too much. So we're starting to see those changes, right? As well as if you have thoughts of feeling hopeless, helpless, if you're feeling withdrawn, if you're having some, anger that you're having a lot of difficulty controlling. So again, it's like we mentioned before, that baseline, right? A lot of us are worriers, right? We worry. But then if we notice we're worrying so much that we're not sleeping, and as we talked about the mind and body, we're worrying so much that, my stomach is really upset. I'm having trouble eating because I'm worrying so much. So, we don't always want to jump to pathology or to diagnose people, but it's good to go and check it out. And often it's to start with your family physician or even just talking to other people. And then you can kind of go from there.
It could be weather conditions as well, for the kind of weather we endure in Canada, right?
Yeah.
At times,
And that's why, there is things called seasonal affective disorder. So, you sometimes see people that when we get to those winter blues. And then we also want to treat that though too, right? Because those winter blues can then turn into a depression. We don't want that. And also too, it's good to also check, for example, there are some medical conditions that cause, some heart conditions can cause anxiety, some stomach conditions can cause your thyroid. I often work with adolescents who are not always eating that well. So I want to make sure, what's your diet like? Maybe your iron is low. Maybe you're feeling sluggish because your iron's low. So again, it's that biological model as well, right? To incorporate that. So we're always looking at how well is the body, how well are you taking care of it? Right, because there is absolutely needing. There's medical conditions that can also cause.
Yes, but I believe mental health and physical health both complement each other.
Oh,
right?
absolutely, absolutely. They're both so important. They go hand in hand.
Yeah. And in addition to that, I agree completely with everything you said. Also look for if it is persistent and prolonged, right? So
good point.
if you're under the weather, in quotes, you're feeling sad. Are you always feeling sad? How long are you feeling sad for, right? If we're thinking about depression, right? You're not able to get out of bed no matter how much you try, right? You're in the dark, you can't go to work, you can't go to sleep. If it is affecting kind of your productivity and your everyday routine, and everything has just changed backwards, then something must be going on, and how can we kind of figure that out, right? So those are some of those how to figure out what's going on, if it is unusual, if it is different from your baseline. Right?
I think it's so important to look at, is it impairing your daily functioning? We do have those blue days. We want to, I always encourage people to have a pajama day.
Right.
It's important to have a pajama day.
I love a pajama day.
A pajama day is so important, right?
What is this pajama day?
You want to have one day a month where you do not get out of your pajamas. And you rest and you do lots of self-care. It's the pampering spa day for us women. You get somebody to do your toes.
I love the idea.
Right?
Absolutely. We should be having pajama days. Yes,
I come from, I'm an older therapist, I'd say. I'm not that much older, but I've been doing this for a long time. And every third Friday we would have a earned day off. Yes. And when I was a supervisor, I would say to my staff, what did you do on your earned day off? And they would tell me, well, they got another job and they were doing other things. And I said, no. Earned day off means spa day, pajama day, rest day. And every family really needs to embrace that. Right? In the Danish and the Scandinavian countries, they are do a lot of research in happiness. And they do that. They spend lots of time, turn off all the electronics, sit, play, have a pajama day of just warmth, all your senses.
Yes.
Right? And does that just sound lovely?
That sounds
This is lovely. I love the idea, and I should be going for the pajama days and spa days. Yes, absolutely. So, my next question is, as per the survey I'm in, 35% of the people we surveyed are not comfortable seeking professional help, that is therapy or counseling. What is your view? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I understand it. I get it. So I've been in therapy myself, and before, even though I was in school to be a therapist and I understood the importance of it and I realized that I needed to see somebody, there was still some hesitation and apprehension around it all. And you know, I think it comes from knowing that you have to be vulnerable and that there's aspect of vulnerability in it, and our understanding of what vulnerability is. You know, it's that, you know, we've put a lot of things in boxes, and if you understand what therapy is, you know, it's opening the box and unpacking everything that's in that box, right? And that can be scary for a lot of people. It most certainly was scary for me. But I think that ultimately it's knowing that the help is there and it's going to be better, and choosing yourself and fighting for yourself, and kind of, you know, realizing that the state in which you are in currently is not sustainable and it's not where you want to be, and the work needs to be done to kind of to get you to where you need to be. I think that was personally the motivating factor for me to kind of seek therapy. And for a lot of people, it's not knowing even where to look, like not knowing how to start, right? So you can start just Googling, right? Googling therapy in Saskatchewan, or you know, mental health in Saskatchewan. You know, there are places where, you know, it is free to access those services, and there are places where you pay privately for those things. And I think some people also feel like once you go see somebody, you're stuck with that person, right? You feel like, okay, if I go chat with someone, maybe, and I don't like them, I can't leave. Well, you can. You can fire your therapist. You can, you know. So if you meet with somebody, if you've, you know, taken the courage, you have the courage, and you've met with somebody, and you know the rapport is great, and you connected with that person, that is fantastic, right? Stick with that person. They're gonna be on this journey with you, right? They're there to guide you, to work with you. But if you've gone to see somebody and it is not a great fit, and you feel like this person doesn't understand, or you feel like, because I know Black youths in the community, some people feel like they're spending their session time explaining and re-explaining their experiences, and even teaching their therapists about what's going on, and that's not helpful for them at all. If you find that that's what's happening, and you find that you're not getting what you need, leave and find someone else, right? Because this work is for your own well-being. This is for your mental health. This is for your growth, right? And it's probably going to be for some time, right? Some people are in therapy for 6 months or a month or a year or 2 years, right? So this is because therapy is a process. This is a long haul thing. So, you know, don't be afraid that if you do find somebody that you're stuck with that person, you're free to find someone else that works for you, that understand what's going on. And even before that, if you feel lost about where to go and who to talk to, just simple research. Go on Google, go on Instagram, because I know there are so many therapists on Instagram right now, on Facebook or Twitter, Google, the social media, you know, and just start somewhere, right? Even reading people's experiences online can help you muster that courage to seek support for it.
And I think it's okay too to ask your therapist, right? To ask the therapist questions of, are they trained in cultural competence counseling? You know, have they worked with other people from other cultures? What is their experience? There's nothing wrong to interview your counselor. You know, we ask you questions. Why can't you ask back?
There we go.
Ask about experience. Ask, are you what is your training? Are you trained in trauma? What type of approach do you use? Right? It's that goodness of fit. And I think too, it's also word of mouth, right? All of a sudden you maybe when you get the dialogue going, then you find out somebody says, oh, I saw so-and-so and I quite liked her. And then that's what happens, right? You start finding people who can work to what you want. And you're exactly right. If you're not happy with your counselor, then you leave. And they're not offended because they're there for you. Right? They're there to work for you.
That's a great suggestion, Darcia. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I do agree with that, because like as person who has suffered from like mental illness, it makes you feel like it's a chore to explain yourself, and you feel guilty for leaving the person, because first of all you feel like you've wasted their time, you needed them, then you have voices in your head like, oh, why are you pretending, what's going on? So like, thank you for saying such a thing, because it uplifts a person who feels like, okay, I have to go to therapy, oh my goodness, no, I have to explain how this made me feel, will they understand that this made me feel that way? Do I have to teach my counselor to be my counselor type of deal? So thank you for saying that.
Of course, yeah. It is not easy accessing therapy. It's not easy, sitting in front of somebody that you don't know. You're only going to be there for an hour and talking about intimate things and scary things and vulnerable things. It's not easy. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength to do that. And anybody who's sought therapy or who's accessed a counselor should feel very proud of themselves, because it is not an easy thing to do, right? And we tend to, the voice in our head, we catastrophize things a lot, right? We think, oh my goodness, today are they gonna like me? Am I wasting your time? You are in control. When you go and access therapy, you are fighting for yourself, right? You're there because you realize that you require support, and you have hired this person to support you, right? Yes, they have the education background and they have the professional understanding and competency and all of that stuff, but it is your lived experience, right? And it is a collaborative approach. So you're giving them stuff, you're given material, you're speaking about how you've lived your life and what your life experiences are, and they're using their own knowledge, right? Different therapeutic approaches, understanding culture and being culturally humble to work with you to address those issues. So and yes, there is a power dynamic, right? We know that there is, but ultimately, I think, because I tell some of the clients that I see, it is, this is your journey, right? This is your journey. So however you want it to be is how you're gonna shape it to be, right? So
that's very insightful, and thank you again.
Of course, yes.
Some do argue that they don't feel like healthcare system caters specific needs to like Black people, especially because of the difference in culture. The one doesn't want to explain themselves, like we had mentioned earlier. So what's your comment on that?
Yeah, so that the healthcare system, the medical system doesn't really cater to Black. I think there is some issues, right, that Black people and people of African descent have faced when it comes to the medical system and when it comes to access in healthcare, right? We know even in our own city and province here, some of the issues that Black people have faced, right? In Regina, we saw Mr. Uko being escorted from the Regina Hospital when he went to seek mental health support, and was then later found dead after. So it is, when you see evidence of that, and when you see different examples and experiences, you tend to start believing that perhaps this system isn't built for me, and the reality is that it isn't, right? It isn't. And we need to navigate those spaces and figure out how to survive in those spaces, right? That being said, we shouldn't let that deter us from actually seeking those services and seeking those help, because there are people there that are supportive, and there are people that would help when you ask for those help, right? You have to understand that it isn't all bad. It isn't all bad, and you pay for this, you pay your taxes and whatever it is, and it is your right to go seek medical help and to go seek professional help and psychological help, and don't let anything deter you from doing that. When you're in a system where you don't feel supported, ask for another person who's going to support you, right? If you find that just like we said with therapy, if you find that someone isn't kind of supporting you where you need to be, go somewhere else. Look for someone else that understands you and that would support you. But yeah, it is a systemic issue that we face, and there are structural barriers to accessing services, right? For Black folks, and it is affecting our mental health, right? Because when you go to the hospital asking for help and you're afraid that you're going to get turned away, you don't even want to go, right? So it is a problem in our society, and we need to continue to speak about it and talk about it, and hope that people are listening and are aware of it and are kind of fighting for what's right and what is just.
Yeah, I agree. And as a community, we need to do a better job. And I think that as a community, as they say right now with COVID, we're better together, right? But I think as a community, and there are times where the community is not helpful. I've lived in prairie provinces all my life, and the prairie provinces are a little slow in understanding oppression of Black people, and they're slowly coming around. But I think it is something that it's a growth, right? It's a process, and we can't give up. And we have to keep working with the community and each other, because we, as a community, we can start helping each other. And one thing is by just reaching out. And when you're not sure if you want to go to emergency, and you're feeling that that when I go there I'm going to get turned away. So the thing is, do you take a friend with you? Do you contact Mobile Crisis and contact other people and get a community? It's so important when we do the work as a team, when we have other supports together, then we can start moving forward.
I have a question. I believe preventive healthcare is better than curative healthcare, right? So what are your suggestions on taking care of mental health on daily basis?
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That is such a good question.
It's the pajama day.
It is the pajama day.
We're start a movement on the pajama day, because I think it's really important. And sometimes as a psychologist, what I'll do is I'll say to people, what did you do today to work on your mental health? Right? What did you do today? Then I ask people to keep a log of your sleeping. How well are you sleeping? Right? Did you have a good sleep? What was happening during the day? Mindfulness. Oh, I love mindfulness.
Yes.
Johns Hopkins University just was doing some research, and they were saying that people if you do mindfulness for 8 weeks, a mindfulness program, you start feeling better. And mindfulness could be anything from shut off all the electronics, sit, do mindful eating. Just look at the food, taste it, smell it. When you do one thing, one moment, no judgment, and just be in that moment, that helps your mental health. Because we know the research shows that the brain only likes to do one thing at a time. Everybody thinks it is supposed to do all of these things. The brain was never built for that. The brain was meant to do one thing at a time. So preventative, mindfulness, in your moment, in your busy work day, you stop, you close your eyes, you have a nice mindful moment of thinking of something that's just wonderful that you've maybe been to, a place you've been to. So I think there's so many different ways that we need to incorporate it into our every single day, right?
Absolutely.
Can we just state, let's say, 8 reasons? Can we take turns to say eight things to take care of our mental health?
Sure, absolutely.
Let's start from Adijat.
I'll go. So do I say one thing or can I say?
Next turn you can take.
Okay, all right. If you're into skincare, do skincare.
Wonderful. Yes, Darcia.
Exercise. Must exercise.
Yes.
Be consistent with both of what they just said.
Yes.
I would say listen to music and do some yoga. Get into dance.
Absolutely. Find alternative ways of doing different things, right? We talked about exercise and you're not able to go to the gym because of COVID. Do yoga in your living room, right? Watch a YouTube video and do exactly what you're doing. Take that 15 minutes to be with yourself.
Socially connect. It is so important to talk to people, and I need people to see faces.
Yeah.
You've got, even with COVID, we know that social engagement through the eyes is important for your nervous system.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wait, I'm still thinking.
Family time, friends time. Meet them over Zoom. Talk to them over the telephone, right? And get ready. Wear good clothes even if you're not going to the office, right? Stay connected to people. Look into the mirror. Cherish yourself. Applaud yourself, pamper yourself, right?
Yeah, and also tap into your creativity.
Very good.
Yes.
Wonderful. This is so amazing. Tap into your creativity. Yes.
Yeah.
Here we come to the conclusion of the first episode of our podcast focused on mental health in Black communities. We will continue our chat with Darcia and Adijat in the next episode to learn more. If you are currently experiencing any concerns or issues with your mental health, you can contact the following free services listed in our description. Have a great day until we meet again.